With the galaxy of guests, the lights outside seem but dim. Really, our guests, they themselves are enlightened, and they are lighting up the stars, the skies of SHEELA. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone.
Namaste. On behalf of the entire SHEELA family, let me welcome you all to a journey through SHEELA Model School. SHEELA Model School, the brainchild of Dr. Robindra Roy, our founding president, and Dr. Pratima K. Roy, our vice president, has grown up from only 350 students and 12 teachers to a magnificent campus of 20 acres, around 5,000 students and 155 teachers. We began our journey in the year 1995 on March 12th in the ancestral property of Dr. Roy's. Let us see where we began from. It was in the year 1988 that the seeds of the dream were sown in the minds of few like-minded individuals, and Dr. Robindranath Roy and Dr. Pratima K. Roy, in the loving memory of their parents, late Hemchandra and Shilabati Roy, established SHEELA Model School. This temple of knowledge is committed to personalized liberal education for the holistic development of individuals. Dr. David Johnson from Springfield, Missouri, along with Drury students, laid the foundation stone in the year 1990, and thus the journey of SHEELA began. We were so fortunate enough to have then President Drury University, Dr. John Moore, inaugurating the primary school at Thandaba in 1995, Dr. Roy's first love.
Namaskar. Dr. Robin Roy, O Tars 3, Dr. Protima Roy Horan, America, Springfield, Missouri, Vuri College, Heke, Ami Antarik, Shubecha, Nie, Ashchi. Dr. Robin Royer, Anurode, Aj, Ami Amar, Bandu Ebong, Shahokormider Shate, Ekane, Uposti Poyechi. Onar e Amontone Ami Kubi Shomanito. And I want to say that my friend and colleague, Dr. Robin Roy, has undertaken an unusual and impressive project. Some years ago, he began telling me about his dream for a school in Durgapur as a memorial to his mother and father. As this idea formed in his mind, he sought the support and involvement of brothers and sisters as well as friends here and in the United States to make his dream become a reality.
Namaste. I am Mrs. Vijaya Datta, teacher in charge of our founder president's first year, SHEELA Model School, Thandaba.
It initially started with 350 students in the year 1995. Today we have 581 students with 19 teachers working together in full coordination with our teachers at the main campus in JN Avenue. We have classes nursery to 4 with 2 sections of each class. We are fortunate enough to be provided with digital classrooms which enhances our learning process. Added to these facilities, we are thankful to our founder president sir and vice president madam for providing us with the science lab to promote activity-based learning, a lovely children's park, a computer lab and several aids to promote learning through experience and in a play-way method. This Durgapur Society owes a lot to Dr. Roy for providing such a wonderful learning environment. And I would request all from America to visit this cozy corner and experience this extraordinary family. Thank you. The main campus was dedicated by Nobel laureate Dr. Johann Dassenhofer and his wife Dr. Kristen Fisher-Linda in the year 1996. It spreads on 20 acres of land, running successfully from pre-nursery to grade 12. He was also the plenary speaker for the 10th Founders' Day in the year 2005.
Dear students, parents, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Where I come from, in southern Germany, there is a standing advice for speakers that goes as follows. Get up fresh, open your mouth wide, and finish soon.
And he graced us with his presence again in the year 2010, dedicating the Alumni Development Center. We find Dr. Johann Dassenhofer in his different moods, where we learn from him the humbleness, we learn from him the simplicity, and we learn from him the humility. He was there to inspect and question and show his interest for each and every project that the students were demonstrating in the different high-tech laboratories. Thank you, sir, for being with us and always guiding us. SHEELA Model School was ever privileged to welcome the academicians and educationists from United States of America. In the year 2000, educationist, had stepped into our school and he inaugurated and dedicated the middle school of the main campus of SHEELA Model School. It was again in the year 2015 that Dr. Michael Doyle and Madam Doyle graced our school, and their humility, their humbleness touched every life of the SHEELA. They were there at the Khatpuria campus of our Pratima Child and Women Development Center. Their humility, their kindness, their gesture touched each and every children's heart. They interacted with the teachers here at SHEELA Model School, and they also interacted with the tiny tots of our pre-nursery section. We are ever grateful to these visionaries of ours. SHEELA has always been honored by the visit of eminent educationists, academicians and administrators from Drury University. In the year 2010, we had then President of Drury University, President Todd Parnell, visiting SHEELA Model School. It was wonderful to interact with this great man, and he dedicated the amphitheatre and the swimming pool of Drury SHEELA Recreation Centre. SHEELA continued to grow. It did not restrict itself till grade 10, but flourished and established its mark. Each success boosted up the confidence, and thus came in the challenge to take up more responsibility and establish itself as one of the nation's best non-profitable institutions. Thus the idea to open grade 11 and 12 with science, commerce and humanities stream took its first step with the groundbreaking of the higher secondary science block by Dr. Charles Taylor and Mrs. Jan Taylor in the year 2006. We had the privilege of having Dr. Charles Taylor once more in the year 2012 as a plenary speaker for the 17th Founders' Day. SHEELA wore a new crown in the year 2002 when officially Drury University recognized SHEELA Model School as their sister school. This fusion of the Western technology with the Oriental culture facilitated the enrichment of both the institutions. Education majors devote a considerable amount of time for their practice teaching at SHEELA for the pre-service teachers training program. Exceptional SHEELA students have got the privilege of studying at Drury University with full scholarship. 4 SHEELA faculty members have also visited Drury as a part of the educational exchange program. SHEELA went on adding feathers to its cap. We believe in holistic development of the child. We had this great mission, big dreams, but with little hope. In 2007 and 2009, Mr. John Berline, then chairman of the Board of Trustees of Drury University, dedicated this mammoth facility, Drury SHEELA Recreation Center. This facility caters to the needs of each and every student of the school. It has an auditorium.
The magnificent Drury SHEELA Recreation Center with the state-of-the-art auditorium has been constructed based on a dream to create an ideal educational environment to redefine learning with proper ambience, facility and technology. The auditorium is well equipped, enabling us to make maximum use of it by not only conducting various workshops and seminars by eminent resource persons from India and abroad, but also unleashing the talents of our students through various cultural programs. We remain truly indebted to Mr. John Bernheim for his generous contribution that has facilitated us to create a welcoming and supportive environment where students can easily excel.
It has an amphitheater, it has an indoor swimming pool, and it has a mammoth sports complex. Here we developed the athletic prowess of the children. We are indebted to this great man who helped us to develop Mount SHEELA Model School. We are thankful to you, sir, for giving us this one of its kind in Eastern India. This mammoth facility is not only helping to develop, to inculcate and to help the teachers, the students and the everyone present in the SHEELA campus. Thank you and thank you, sir.
For the H1S1 fever is to become a part of SHEELA and help to make it better. So Dr. Roy and I began talking, and SHEELA already has a great educational program, so we began discussing
The visionary's dream to digitalize the education system in this school led to a great leap in this mission. For the third time, it was Mr. John Bernheim who visited our campus and he dedicated the smart board technology in each and every classroom of SHEELA Model School. Till date, 100 classrooms in our campus is equipped with smart board technology where the teachers and the students have an efficient and effective teaching learning program. Words are too less to express our gratitude towards this ever magnanimous Mr. John Bernheim. He has given us another wonderful gift to SHEELA Model School. The state-of-the-art, the most modern advanced computer lab which caters to the needs of the senior students from classes 9 to 12. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful gift to us. The year 2009 witnessed several developments in the school. The high-tech laboratories of physics, chemistry, and biotechnology was dedicated by Ms. Jennifer Bernheim. This forms an integral part of the school curriculum where we encourage the students to participate in hands-on activity and to gain real-life experiences. We have yet to gain a glimpse of Mr. Bernheim's magnanimous donations and soulful support in his dedication of the tribal school, Pratibha Child and Women Development Center in the year 2010. This school was set up for the economically disadvantaged tribal children and women. The 7 teachers and 143 students at Pratibha Child and Women Development Center are a welcome change for the Santhal community. It provided skill training to tribal women so that they can be financially empowered. The skill training center was dedicated by Brother Ephraim O'Brien.
Pratibha Child and Women Development Center, Khatpuria. A novel project of Dr. Pratibha Roy added another dimension when Dr. Catherine Pottermore, former student of Dr. Robindran Roy, and her husband, Mr. Jason Menon, well lent out their hands to put their service before self. Louis Watkins Moore Wellness Center was dedicated on December 31st, 2016, and it took its first step to reach out to the needy on February 20th, 2017. Under the able leadership of two dedicated doctors, Dr. Rita Ghosh and Dr. Shomitra Ghosh, the clinic has been able to serve till date more than 4,000 patients of tribal community. Unparalleled commitment of Dr. Ghosh with supportive staff has enabled the clinic to flourish and spread awareness about health and hygiene to the tribal community. The great visionaries have put their lives in action in the service of the tribal women and children, ensuring them sound health and a better living.
As we embarked on our journey to provide unique educational experience to our students, our faculty and students together started to write the script of success story of SHEELA. For the last 3 years, we have made a mark in the national arena, and even our students have kept their footprints in the international forum.
This year, SHEELA added several plumes in her crown of success. We feel proud to share that 123 students out of 237 of Class 10 nationwide exam have secured a perfect score of CGPA 10. Students have performed equally well in the Class 12 nationwide exam. Class 12 Science has secured an aggregate percentage of 86.38. The aggregate percentage of Class 12 Commerce is 80.47, and the first batch of Humanities, Class 12, has given an excellent performance with an aggregate of 84.11%. Naman Agarwal, securing 97.8% of Class 12 Commerce, is the school topper. The constant support of the dedicated faculty and their unending efforts have made this possible. Our success story doesn't end here. Vinita Sinha of Class 12 has been accepted at Cornell University, USA with full scholarship to pursue undergraduate course with major in computer science. We wish her all the best.
We have two of our students of grade 12, Shagnik Mujumdar and Orijit Ghosh, availing 100% scholarship and would be pursuing their undergraduate degrees from Stanford University, USA and Jacobs University, Germany.
As I said earlier, I've been here for 14 years, and ever since I was a little child, everybody here has been very supportive of whatever I do and whatever I go through. My activities were mostly extracurricular. So, and the support shown by the teachers was heartwarming throughout my life, and I thank you all present here for giving me such a great school life.
I really don't know what to say really, but I can assure you that that seldom happens. I have always something to say, but right now I have so many things to say, but I have a very little time, so I think I'd be remiss to actually make all of the points. So I just say a big thank you to each and every member of the SHEELA fraternity for supporting me in every sphere, be it the extracurricular sphere, the co-curricular sphere, the academic sphere. I feel really proud, honored and privileged to have been a part of this glorious institution for these 2 years, and I thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.
We have an excellent team of administrators with our vice principals, chief coordinator and teacher in charges, all working in unison, helping the school to attain excellence. We have a supportive management and trusty members whose constant support in all our honest endeavors have seen SHEELA grow steadily. SHEELA has steadily grown since 1995. But what a quantum jump since the year 2007, when Mr. John Burline first stepped into this Mount SHEELA Himshila has undergone a huge transformation. This decade has seen lots of development, be it infrastructure, to the high-tech laboratories, to the sports facilities. We have excelled in every field.
Scientists, we promise to make excellence as a part of our growth. We promise to make excellence as the milestones of our journey.
And we owe a lot to you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for every gift to Himshila. We will be ever treasuring the moments spent with you, and we look forward for your further visits. We promise that we will keep up to your expectation. Each one of us, the administrators, the fraternity, the students and the community at Mount Himshila will be a unique mount in its own self.
Thank you, sir.
That was wonderful. Now I request the 18th President of Drury University, Dr. James Timothy Cloyd, to kindly address the gathering. Sir, please.
So, if you raise the lights, I want to not give a speech. I'd rather just talk to people and have a conversation. Because we have a lot of talented people in this room, and we are blessed to have great educators in all of you. We have business people from the United States. We have faculty members from the United States and from Drury University. And we have trustees, and we have a preeminent journalist with us tonight, the executive editor of the Times of India, who has a lot of perspective about what I'm going to be talking about briefly tonight. We have students, a high school student from the United States. We have a student who's in college at another liberal arts institution in the United States. So I want to just talk to you, but I want to get your ideas about what this partnership needs to look like in the future. But first I want to say, I was reading a book about India, and there was a great quote from one of your Nobel laureates, a person who won the Nobel Prize in 1915, who's from Calcutta, a poet, a famous Indian poet, who said that for a Westerner, India appears to be like a deaf person who might be watching a piano player. You can see all the activity, but you can't hear any of the music. And so people ask me, well, since I've been here, is this your first trip to India? And I say, yes. And they say, what is it like? And I say, well, it's kind of like that. You know, you're trying to pick up on the music and you see all the activity, but I think your great poet was right sometimes, that Westerners have to get adjusted. The other is a person that I was privileged to take a course with at Vanderbilt University, another Bengali person from Bengal, Amartya Sen. And Amartya Sen won the Nobel Prize in economics. And I was teaching at Vanderbilt, and I took this course with him because he was down from Harvard on a visiting semester. And he used to say, Tim, India is like a large semi-truck with 12 wheels. 2 wheels can go flat, and it can still keep moving. But he said, China is like a semi-truck with 2 wheels. If one wheel goes flat, it goes flying into off the road. And I've learned India is that way because of its great diversity. And so you can have one thing happening in one province or one state in the country that may be a total breakdown, but the rest of the country keeps going. And I wonder how you would see the United States and what your experience would be if all of you could come and spend a year at Drury. Whether you would see us as the semi-truck that has 12 wheels or the one that has 2 wheels. And right now I want to talk a little bit about how the United States is a mixture of these two things, the semi-truck with 2 wheels and 12 wheels. Because politics in the United States is very complicated today, and it's affecting education. K through 12 education, as well as higher education. And the Trump administration has brought a very interesting dimension and dynamic to United States politics, and it's affecting higher education. And in fact, higher education was being affected a lot before this time. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about how education is changing in the United States and how Drury is changing with it, and what we could do together to help to reflect a better pedagogical style, to innovate, to enhance what we do to transform the lives of students. I also want to say, if you've not been to Drury University, I've been there for 18 months, so Mark Wood or John Berline or the rest of these guys sitting here can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my reading of Drury. Drury University was founded in 1873, almost 150 years ago. And it was founded by these Christian missionaries who are called Congregationalists. And we had a great civil war in the United States from 1861 to 1865. And the state of Missouri was called Bloody Missouri because people from one farm and another farm would kill each other. It was a hatred. It was complicated. It was messy. Kashmir is messy for you. The end of colonialism was messy for you and here in India. And it was complicated. And it was that way in 1865. And there was a lot of hatred and resentment. And these Congregationalists had been shot and hung and terrorized and driven out of Missouri because they were abolitionists. But they came back into Missouri and they founded Drury University. And they founded it on a couple of principles. One, they wanted to teach people in the liberal arts. That is, to be able to think critically and analytically, to be able to see the world through someone else's eyes, to be able to study the arts, to be able to study literature, et cetera, because they thought that kind of education could lead to forgiveness and reconciliation. The second thing they wanted to do was to teach practical, pragmatic skills because they knew that the country in Missouri needed to be rebuilt because it was completely destroyed in the Civil War, as were many cities across the South. And Missouri was it was not spared. So they knew they had to educate people to understand each other and forgive each other and have reconciliation. And they knew they needed to educate people to have pragmatic skills. And I like to call that educating people in virtue and educating people in virtuosity. Virtue and virtuosity. The other thing was that Drury from the beginning reached out. In its first class, it had, of 9 students, it had about 6 of those students were women in 1873. And it had a number of Native Americans, a number of Indians, Native American Indians. And this was radical because this was 3 years before the great Indian Wars out west, where Custer and all these people were killed fighting against the Indians. So Drury was progressive and diverse and accepting. So these are things that still are in the DNA of Drury. Education in the liberal arts and virtue, and education in virtuosity. How does that reflect today? Well, it means that Drury has an architecture school and it has a liberal arts institution. It means that Drury has a school of education and a liberal arts institution. Drury has a school of business and a liberal arts institution. It has a school of communications and a liberal arts institution. So these pragmatic, professional, applied things with the liberal arts. It has basic science research, which Rabindra Roy and his brother and Kima in the School of Education have done basic research and involved students with published articles and received $4.7 million of grants from the NIH, National Endowment for the Sciences, the National Institutes of Health, etc. So we do research, hands-on research in the sciences. So we have that, we have business, we have all of these things together with the liberal arts. So that's what really makes Drury a distinctive place. So I want to talk a minute about what's happening in America today in higher education. And in the South of the United States, where I'm from, we say, well, you should never talk about religion or politics in polite company. So you should never talk about religion and politics in a public setting because it's too controversial. But I'm going to break the rule and I'm going to talk a little bit about politics before I talk about education and what's changing in education. Politics in the United States. So what does it mean for K through 12 education, the space you're in, and higher education, the space we're in? Well, back in 1985-ish, the United States in higher education began to go through one of its transformations. And that picked up speed in the 1990s. And this transformation was about rethinking the core curriculum, rethinking the way we taught, particularly the kinds of things we required students to take. And previously, we had a heavy reliance on the Western intellectual tradition. And this movement began shifting that to where we began reading things like the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran and non-Western texts, Confucius, Buddha, these things. And that was a good movement because it was about multiculturalism and globalization. But also with that came a movement called postmodernism out of France, where it began, which was to say that there was no fixed truth. There was no fixed identity, that nothing was native or natural, even gender identity, even racial identity, that there was everything was a construction, a social construction. And this has even taken a bizarre turn to say that there is no objective fact in science, that science itself is dominated by subjective ideas. This leads to a very disruptive space, and people within higher education, in many of the faculty members at Eastern and Western institutions on the East Coast and institutions on the West Coast of the United States, many faculty began pushing these ideas harder and harder. And students picked up on it. And it became a way of articulating their desire to construct their own identity, whatever that might be. But this was very threatening to the conservatives within the United States, particularly conservatives who were what we call today in the United States alt-right, alternative right, right-wing, extreme right-wing. This has pushed nationalist movements in the United States. You've had a history here of Hindu nationalism and fundamentalism. Well, in the United States, it pushed that agenda further. The agenda of the religious right, the agenda of the idea that people's racial identity, particularly white America, in the middle of America, was being threatened. And this has helped to propel many of the factions that helped to create a situation where Donald Trump was able to beat every single establishment Republican and get elected to the presidency of the United States. He tapped into something within the United States psyche. 86 million people voted for Donald Trump. And I'm not taking a stand against Donald Trump or for Donald Trump. I'm trying to explain to you that there is this fracture in America right now. And it's deep. And it's very visceral. And Donald Trump is the source of it. He's the lightning rod of it. And his Twitter account is running wild all the time. And he's saying crazy things that are making the world nervous. And he's saying things that are outlandish. Why is he doing that? Does he really believe those things? I don't know that we know yet. But he certainly keeps tapping into this angry streak among Americans who are afraid. They're afraid that their own identity is going to get washed away. And they're clinging to an ideal that someone could come in and save their culture, their ideals, their way of life, because they feel like it's under threat. I think Hindu nationalism has had that same feeling. And you're familiar with that. That's what it is. It's not unique to the United States. Look at what Angela Merkel did in Germany in 2015. She welcomed almost 3% of the German population into Germany from Syrian refugees, etc. This has caused a huge disruption in Germany. Also England, you look at England and what's happening there, and we have in our world today this huge tension, and no one knows how it's going to play out. So I'll leave that there, and I'll ask our friend, the preeminent journalist who's written on this, and lectured at Drury, by the way, on this topic, to add at the end of this his insight. But I'll say this to you. It has resulted in a critique of higher education in America that's damning. I mean, there have been these movements in the campuses of higher education in the United States are seen as the hotbed of this movement against the identity of many Americans. And so the focus of anger of many people who feel threatened is on higher education institutions. And you saw during the campaign and after the campaign when there are conservative right-wing speakers trying to speak at Berkeley or at Middlebury or at Cornell or at Princeton, that there are actually riots of students who shout down these speakers, and they violate free speech. They violate a principle in our Constitution. They don't let people speak who they don't agree with. And this is seen by Middle America, many people who feel threatened, not just in Middle America, but in the South and other places, as this is the fault of higher education. All of this is the fault of higher education. And unfortunately, there is some truth to that. Secondly, it comes at a time when higher education is being challenged because, and criticized rightly because of the price of higher education. Where my son Samuel goes to school, fortunately he got a scholarship. But it's $65,000 a year to go to that school. $65,000 a year. Can you imagine? So the price of higher education has gotten out of control. And many people in the lower classes and lower middle classes feel they can't afford it anymore. The second thing they feel is that what they're getting is not something that is marketable. They feel like they're studying topics that don't mean anything. It's a critique of the liberal arts because many people see the liberal arts as the place where this kind of thinking, this deconstruction, this idea that identity is a social construction, they see the liberal arts as that's where all this came from. And why are you graduating with a degree in African American studies or women's studies or these things? It's crazy. You know, why are we even offering these things? Why are there departments devoted to Gaelic studies or Irish studies? You know, that these are niche things that don't really have anything to do with the world. And state schools in particular have suffered because at the state level, budgets have been slashed for state institutions, state higher education institutions, dramatically. Because they say, we can't afford to have a philosophy department. We can't afford to have a music department. I mean, why do you major in music at a state university? So these things are being criticized. And the liberal arts are being criticized. And the way it's playing out is budget cuts. And severe budget cuts. I mean, 25% of the budget cut. Laying off professors. Laying off staff. So this question of the price of higher education, the value of higher education, the threat of higher education is also playing out at the national level. We just passed a tax bill in the United States. They gave a big reduction in taxes to many people. But also as a part of that federal law, it incorporated things that taxed private higher educational institutions in the United States in a way that's unprecedented. I don't disagree with all of that law because some of it taxed schools like Stanford and Harvard and Princeton where they have endowments of $38 billion. Can you imagine an endowment of $38 billion for a school, a higher education institution? Is that right? At Drury, we have an endowment of $100 million. We have 1,400 students in our residential regular school, and we have about 3,500 more students in our continuing education and graduate program, so about 5,000 students, $100 million. At Harvard, you have an undergraduate population of about 6,000, and you've got $38 billion in your endowment. At Stanford, it's $29 billion. You know how much you make every second of every day on that kind of money right now when the market's going up? So the federal law puts a tax on those schools, on their endowments, where they didn't have to pay taxes before on what they earned. I don't know that I disagree with that. There are other elements in this law, but I see in that the writing on the wall is that they are going after higher education. At the federal level, because the Republicans control the Congress. And they're listening to the voices of people back home who are saying these schools are the problem. The other thing is that they're going to pass the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. That is the federal law that supports higher education in the United States. And it is under attack. Now, how does Drury fit into this? Drury is the exception. We are not on the West Coast and we're not on the East Coast. We're not a radically liberal left-wing school. And we're not a radically conservative right-wing school in the private higher education space. We're in the middle. We're middle of the road. We had a protest when Donald Trump got elected. It was 25 students on the lawn playing ukuleles, little bitty guitars, 25 students. We didn't have a riot like they did at Berkeley. We have students who are Midwesterners, who are wholesome, who are kind, who are earnest, and they just want to get an education. And so it is in the middle of the country, which makes it an ideal place to send SHEELA students, because they can get an education and not be distracted by these culture wars. So if you go to Middlebury or Princeton or Harvard or these big schools that are great on the West Coast or East Coast, you're going to have to deal with all of this craziness. So that's my plug for Drew. But I'll also say that you've got faculty at Drury that are like the faculty at SHEELA, who care deeply about the students. And that these students can come knock on the door, Mark Wood's door, anytime, and he sits down with them. Wendy had a kid from from Kenya come to the house who was worried about paying for his way at Drury. And Wendy picked up the phone and called Mark Wood, and he came by our house first. And then we sent him to Mark, and Mark worked it out. So that's the kind of caring relationship Drury faculty have. So where I want to end this is to ask you, what's your perception of higher education and K-12 education in the United States? And where can we partner even more deeply? I do know that higher education in the United States is also being threatened by new technologies. Every SHEELA student could take a course from Drury University right now online for a dual credit, where they could count it as a college credit and get a course. Or we could partner with you, with your faculty who've recently earned PhDs or others, to do a team taught course. Or we could have our students partner with your students to do team projects, to say, help to try to solve a real world problem together. Maybe 3 or 4 students together. They can FaceTime each other, they can talk with each other. This has led to a whole new industry in the United States, the private, for-profit higher education, which Donald Trump was big into for a long time and is still in. So it's interesting because a lot of higher education is shifting in this new federal tax law, or federal law, Reauthorization Act of Higher Education. It's shifting with Betsy DeVos to support private higher education initiatives that are alternative higher education initiatives, that are not like the residential school college campus that we associate with higher education. So where that will go and what these new disruptive players will mean for us is yet to be seen. We do know a couple of things, that our students are looking for what Drury offers. That is, an education in virtue and an education in virtuosity. That is, the liberal arts combined with pragmatic skills. Students want more concentrated, certificate-type credentials in combination with their major. So you might have a history major who wants to get a certificate in motion graphics and big data analytics, so that they could go to work for the History Channel or go to work for our preeminent journalist news outlet in digital production, or one of the other areas they have. Or you might have a biology major that wants to get a certificate in bioinformatics. And maybe they want to do one in art or graphic art. Or maybe you have a marketing major that wants to get a certificate in cross-cultural identity and Spanish or Hispanic studies. so that they can work within a space. Or maybe even you could get one in Indian culture, Indian politics, and Indian economics, and you could be a major in sociology in the United States. So this gives you things that signal to the market that you can get a job quickly and you can deliver value to companies or to not-for-profits, but it also gives you the opportunity to major in what you're passionate about. So these combinations of things are becoming more important. Small group work in teaching is becoming more important. That's putting pressure on us because of cost. Because you want, if you have 6 students, 12 students, 15 students in a class versus 50, it raises your overhead. So where can we partner? You have the ideas about where we can partner with the curriculum, with faculty, with students. I'll say in closing that one place we can partner is to work together on administrative and business practices. There is a big push, obviously, always, to be more efficient. So I encourage you and encourage us to, and I want you to share ideas. How can we partner, Mark Wood? And I encourage you to think.
And there is a commonality of reaction emanating almost in every country in one particular form or the other. Whereas in United States you have Donald Trump, who would be categorized.
Allow globalization to happen. If you open up the industry, if you open up your country, people of different colors. And I remember 1 billion people, 1.2 billion people. What's the percentage of Muslims living in this country? Not more than 15%. Still, India is the second biggest Muslim country in the world after Indonesia. Very few people actually take on this fear. And since, but in our case, peculiarly, it's the majority which is feeling threatened. So let's put the clock back. The previous day there was a concert given by 2 of my brewery, our meeting to raise funds. It was a special dinner. What is singularly absent in the Indian context is the symbiotic relationship between the alumni and the, you see, genuine concerns, because we don't see contribution, zero. So, it is a matter of a culture where the spirit of giving, I go and tell my friends in United States, there is very lukewarm response. So this is a country of great philosophies. This is a country of Buddha.
What I really want is for you as teachers to suggest ways in which we might partner and deepen this partnership between Guri and Himshi.
It was wonderful. We couldn't have had a better 31st. Thank you. Khalil Gibran's lines. I dreamt and saw, I dreamt and thought that life was joy. I woke.
I don't think ever we had a better evening than today. I'm at loss of words. I just, getting up from there, I was thinking what to do next, what to say here. I would just say here Dr. Cloyd, that surely you have given us some food for our thought. We just say that we would do this for the partnership. Brainstorm on this part. And the thing that struck me here is one thing that teachers act with all the regular activities, it's difficult to think about some unique project. But this area, and I think our founder president was bent upon, like Anandita, you have to do something, and together the students work, communicate, and with certain things that we might lack, that can be a part of the project, can be done at Drury, and then we exchange the result. I think it will work out. I don't know, R&D members here, Bishwadeep, who is in charge of it. Bishwadeep, I can't see you. Just stand here and say we would be doing all this. I think the domains where practically that would be possible, and we would surely like this relationship to be strengthened and really to get the benefit from this relationship. It's not need to be enriched, need to get the knowledge from you all. I think even trustees who are young trustees, as we call them, so the young team of administrators that we have, we also could be in collaboration with you all, get new ideas and really work on it. And surely I would take here a leading role on behalf of SHEELA to see that the thought process probably that has been working on you should be now transferred to us also, where we should be also working on it and see how we develop it. That should be it. And I think evening well spent, and the few discussions that we had from Shuman Chattopadhyay sharing his views, strong views. I think my faculty members and been enriched with this and has been understand many of the things with our only sometimes we get very stuck up with a certain mundane activities, and I personally think I have learnt a lot. Shuman sir also, so Shumanda, so it was a great interaction, so that we could all actually interact and mingle with each other. It was not that the guests were only restricted to only a certain part. Instilled in us more confidence, more strength, ways to look things, not the regular, and to think out of the box. I think that is more important now, and I think there, but we would be center of excellence in the truest sense, unique, when we I think in this thought process of doing something different. So again, our heartfelt gratitude to all our part of the program that we have. Two handsome boys, Sam and Thomas. I think And thank you, Dr. Roy, and thank you, Dr. Pratima Roy, Madam and Sir, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to all our guests. The floor is there, the music will be ushering a happy 2018.
Bollywood, Bollywood.
but my favorite is when you're rocking that bassy sway. When you live in a black dress, don't do it for me, you know how.
से करेंगे सबका स्वागत।